in Abraham, the glorious return. And the Lord said, My spirit shall not always strive with man, for that he also is flesh, yet his days shall be 120 years. Right from the very beginning, God expressed his dismay at the way man had dropped into the abyss of sin and lost his fear for the Lord. In the beginning God, in the beginning God. I've had to repeat these lines in order to shame the wise fools amongst us. A fool hath said in his heart, There is no God. God in Abraham, the glorious return. This is not God and Abraham, since this would put a mortal like Abraham in the same shoes as the Almighty. God in Abraham is God working through Abraham and not the other way round. Apostasy has always been man's greatest weakness. The minute any man or a woman and see themselves highly as a gift from God to others, they should consider themselves apostates. God in Abraham, the glorious return. In Adam, God lost everything, but in Abraham, God regained it all and even consolidated his losses by even a superior and everlasting covenant. Abraham and Sarah had no children of their own since she was barren. Abraham, on the other hand, had many sons with his many concubines, but God had no intended use for them. You see, God doesn't need any help from man. He takes invisible and things that are not and turn them into his sons. God can turn these stones, these pebbles, into sons of Abraham. Jesus harshly reminded the obnoxious religious leaders bragging about being Abraham's sons. Sarah tried to help God by fast-forwarding God's covenanted promise to Abraham, a son who'll grow his descendants into a mighty nation. Thereafter, Ishmael was conceived by Hagar the African. God rejected Ishmael because he was not part of his divine plan. Right on time and in God's own time, Sarah conceived, and Isaac was born, and so God's plan of salvation took shape. Abraham divided his wealth for all his concubines and their sons, sent them back to Africa. Hagar and her son Ishmael didn't survive the chop either. It was the hour of God. Everything is all right now, and so, Abraham thought after sending everyone away. I can walk with the Lord in free spirit and unhindered. Hagar and her son Ishmael, together with all my African concubines and their sons, I have chased away. No more burden or guilt. Father Abraham went to his grave without understanding the gravity of all the mess he and Sarah had created. In due time, Ishmael returned from Africa to the land of promise to bury his father, Abraham. This was the beginning of all the mess and fruition of Abraham and Sarah's mess as Ishmael claimed his portion of the land. Could there be some sparks of truth in the claims made by some Africans, that they are the direct descendants of Abraham through Hagar and all the African concubines Abraham had as wives? I don't know. They call themselves African Hebrew Israelites. Nobody knows the total number of African concubines Abraham had. Immediate future generations and right down to our modern days are feeling the intensity of Abraham's rebellion against God. Like Adam erred and followed Eve, Abraham took the ill advice from Sarah his wife. These two men and their wives got the world where we are today, troubles all round. Ishmael, and he will be a wild man, and every man's hand against him, and he shall dwell in the presence of his brethren. This is Israeli-Palestinian conflict. What about the 12 princes God promised to give to Ishmael? Abraham wouldn't have survived the wrath of God had the law and the prophets been in place. The man survived because he was the very foundation of Moses' law. Abraham didn't live under the law, God's judgment wasn't applicable. We serve a just God. The false prophet in the last days, the prince of deception, will be the only man who will foster the bogus Middle East peace treaty between the Jews and the Palestinians and will be celebrated by the Jewish world as the greatest breakthrough. Heretofore, the second coming of Christ will be imminent after 1,000 years as God wraps up this world as a dirty rag in the subsequent judgment day. Right to this day, I continue to say, the Arab-Jewish impasse remains unresolved. The final solution hereof acts as a prophetic precursor right to the end of the world. The Jews and the Palestinians are all sons of Abraham, and the conflict goes on till someone removes the thorn from their flesh. Watch this space.